From Wall Street to Main Street, this is LALATE.
It's a big evening of Evenings LA with incredible great news about your fourth stimulus check update of 2022 and that big $80,000 of checks that have now gone live. We'll have the latest details on that and more in a big recording tonight from the United States and overseas on your big money. We'll go into, first, the Build Back Better Act that is passing. Then we'll be looking at the CR for stimulus that got a major twist overnight. Then, the latest details on SS 300. Then we turn to the sixth stimulus happening at the same time as fourth stimulus. Next up, the fourth stimulus, $80,000 of checks going live. Then, the third stimulus still paying out today. And also the exciting details of what's unfolding in the oil, energy, and also the grains impacting the money across the board. And a potential recession being on the horizon. It's a big night with a lot of surprises, including money in the CR for local districts across the country. Stuff we never thought would go out, and it's happening. I'll have the latest details in tonight. Then we'll be looking at what's happening with Vladimir Putin and his acts of aggressions against Ukraine, and why economic turmoil could be on the horizon, including a potential recession for the United States. I'll be looking at the economics at issue and what the White House is and isn't doing across the land. Then we'll be looking back at your money and how the world events is changing the situation so quickly, and how the next 6 weeks are critical for this economy and also your money. It's a big night with the Build Back Better Act, the $80,000 of checks going live, the third stimulus, the CR for stimulus, and the SS 300, plus six stimulus and more, and what the president's doing to ensure that all this money is lined up, plus everything else thereafter. The excitement starts right now as a 1 hour special broadcast from the coast of Santa Monica gets underway as Evenings LA starts right now. Everybody, I hope you are good and safe. We're here along the coast of Santa Monica, California, in a big night with a lot of money and a lot of major twists and turns, concerns about recessions, concerns about inflation, and concerns about this economy, all covered in this 1 hour special report with your exciting details on those $80,000 of checks going live. Did you get it? I'm going to show you how to get it, especially if you're a member in tonight's recording. And everything you need to know about where we're going to be between now and May, because May could be when we're heading into a potential recession for 2023. It's a big night with a lot of money across the board, and I'm excited you're here. The 1 hour special report of Evenings LA, America's #1 show in prime time, starts right now, and we're going to start with the details of the Build Back Better Act. The Build Back Better Act, name checked by the President of the United States, in a new interview says it's happening. There are 3 clusters of checks and 3 add-ons of checks, and they're still going to the finish line. That is what we call fourth stimulus, $15,000 of checks. And let's look at that first cluster starting right now. Hazard pay got in there. 1 more year for my essential workers. And then the $4,000 of elder care got it in there. The money for the college student, $550 check, the Pell Grant, and then the $12,500 for the purchase of a new electric vehicle. Then they got in their home repairs across the board. That is the first of 3 clusters of checks in the incredible Build Back Better Act. But the first add-on comes from here in Southern California, $25,000 from Maxine Waters got it in there. That is money for the purchase of your first home. That would be given to the seller in your name at the time of escrow by the federal government. That is the first of 3 add-ons of checks to the incredible Build Back Better Act, and it has at least $15,000 to $60,000 of checks in there. When we look at then the next cluster of checks, we get in there home repairs and paid leave. Home repairs is if you have to stay home due to sickness or illness, and paid leave Did I say home repairs have to stay home with sickness? No, paid leave is if they stay home due to sickness or illness. And home repairs is for to weatherize your home. Paid leave is a lot of money. It is $1,700 a week if you make $70,000 or more per year. Split in half, $35,000. Split in half, $15,000. W-2, 1099, you all get these incredible sums of money. And if you don't work, but your son or daughter does work, well, they'll get the money then if they have to take you to the doctor, especially if home repairs. See the doctor because of those home repairs. Let's go into the second add-on of checks. Comes from Bob Casey. $250 billion of free home health care for seniors and people on disabilities. Got it in there. Let's go now to the third cluster checks, seniors and free internet. Free internet for all checks, farmers checks, independent contractors checks, and seniors. Seniors getting checks on the House and checks on the Senate. Among the House and Senate, collectively, you would get dental, vision, and lowering the eligibility age of Medicare, which is par for the course when we're talking about adding checks to this incredible recon. The third cluster that would add in there, of course, are the MSC. This is the third add-on of checks that the senators represent. They would be adding to the fourth stimulus recon. And what is an MSC? Who gets it? And everything you need to know. An MSC is a IRS monthly stimulus check sent out from IRS to the same people who got a third, says the senators of viewership of the channel. Single individual, $75,000 or less, you'd get it. Married couple, $150,000 or less, you get it, double it. And if you're on benefits, SSI, SSDI, Social Security, Railroad benefits, you'd get it as well. It is not income. It's not taxable. It's not state stimulus. It's nationwide, and it includes money for adult dependents as well. It's $2,000 the first month, $1,000 thereafter for up to 6 months. And there we go. That is an MSC, one of the many checks that would be added to the fourth stimulus recon. But for the first time, really, for simplification on this channel, I'm using a new acronym to describe the first add-on of ancillary checks covered first on this channel last Friday. And it's this map. $80,000 of checks are now live, stimulus checks. And I'm calling it a fourth stimulus add-on or fourth stimulus addition or ancillary piece of legislation. It is the homeowners grant. It went in announcement mode last Friday from the White House. It went right into the membership newsletter for the members of this channel, and it went live on Monday. And have you gotten it? I hope you have. If you haven't, stay with me, you members, because I'm going to go over the details of it in just a second. This is at the same time as the Build Back Better Act, but the only difference is it's live. It's paid out. And if your state on this map is in the color blue, teal, like California, Texas, and Florida, get ready to get that money. It's coming up in just a second in this video. It's what we call the $80,000 fourth stimulus add-on homeowners grant checks. Inflation got a major number this morning. That inflation number was the Consumer Price Index number. I told viewership of this channel that this would be the number you want to watch on Mornings LA live on air Thursday morning. It came in. I had predicted it was going to be 8% because the month of December came in at 7.5%. Inflation is where this economy is struggling out of COVID. And the inflationary concern is what J-POW has to do. It's also an issue when we talk about SS300. So what was that inflationary number this morning? It came in exactly as I predicted. The number was predicted on this channel at 8%. It came in at 7.9%. I got it right on the money as I got it back on the money in December. Last year, I said that the December number would come in at 7 to 8%, and it came in at 7.5%. What does this mean for you and your benefits tonight? Tonight, the situation is looking very good because Jay Powell, his job is to reduce inflation, and Joe Biden, his job is to swap COLA out for inflation. Once Joe Biden makes that swap out, your benefits are locked in to a great new rate. Now, remember how this works. Let's look at it again. Your benefits are tied to a benchmark, and that benchmark is assessed every December. The current benchmark is COLA. Joe Biden promised during his campaign for president and in his campaign and his presidential platform at joebiden.com that he would swap out COLA for inflation. So you want him to swap out for inflation when it's at highest price point. In December, 7.5%. This morning, 8%. So we're still at the highest price point of a generation. This is great news for you. Why? Because Jay Powell, your head of the Federal Reserve, his job is to bring down inflation. And you don't want him to bring down inflation until you have it locked in for your benefits. Remember, once you're locked into a higher rate, that is your rate lifetime. Let's go with analysis. If Joe Biden made the swap today, you would be locked in at 8%. That would raise your benefits up $200 a month. $200 a month, and not just this month, not just this year, just a lifetime. Doesn't matter if inflation goes down later this year, you're locked into that higher rate. Now remember, your benefits are reassessed every year. So inflation, let's say it's 2% later this year, you're still going to get more money for that. Where do I see inflation later this year? About 4%. But this is the issue at hand. The issue at hand is that Jay Powell will be bringing down inflation. And you don't want him to bring it down before Joe Biden swaps out COLA for inflation. So what's the analysis tonight, and what's the good news? And also, what was the surprise when looking at what happened with SSI, SSDI, Social Security, Railroad benefits, and veterans benefits today? Number one, the number came in exactly on the money. Good news, 8%. We're locked in. Number two, Jay Powell will be doing a quarter basis point in his FOMC meeting in just a few days from now. He told us that last week. So even with that quarter basis point, he ain't going to bring you down lower than 8% this month. And not next month, because it takes a little time for that number to flow through the system, the raising up of interest rate at quarter basis point. So where's my element of concern? My element of concern is about May, because Jay Powell has not given us indication of what could happen in April. He said, I'm likely to stay at quarter basis point increase for interest rate. That would potentially bring us slightly down, maybe 7 to 6%. But I'm worried. Why? Because of what happened this morning. If you watched morning's LALATE, it was not the CPI number that worried me. It was what happened out of Europe. And what happened out of Europe? Jay Powell has a counterpart, and that counterpart is not the Fed chair in another country, but the Fed chair for the European community. And who is she? She's Christine Lagarde, and this morning she gave her policy announcement, and it was stronger than anyone was expecting. Now, they don't have the type of inflation we have at the moment, so she's pivoting a little bit slower, but she came in with a faster tapering than Wall Street expected. Why am I worried? Because Jay Powell may see that as well and say, if Lagarde is doing a faster tapering because she thinks inflation is a bigger concern, maybe in April, I need to do stronger. So this was huge, and no one really saw this coming. 7.9% is, of course, the highest inflationary rate since 1982, that CPI number this morning. This was a 40-year high, according to the Department of Labor in its latest statistics. But I'm not so concerned about that, because that's good news for you, because remember, you would be locked into a higher rate for that incredible lift of your benefits, about $200 a month. I'm more concerned about what Christine Lagarde did. She saw the Russian-Ukraine war in her comments, and she said it will have a material impact on inflation. But she said, no, I'm coming in stronger on inflation. So what does this translate for Jay Powell? I don't know. We will see what Jay Powell does in April if he sees things like the ECB chair, Lagarde, saying, I need to come in stronger on inflation. Maybe he will as well. And you don't want him to until Joe Biden makes that swap out to COLA. Yeah, you want that swap out to COLA to happen as quickly as possible. Major developing details overnight on the CR for stimulus. And this was a surprise. No one saw this coming. In fact, when I went to prepare for tonight's broadcast after the Home LA Live show, I did not realize even this factor. It has not been seen for over a decade, what I'm about to tell you. State stimulus, county stimulus got into the continuing resolution for the first time in over a decade. What's going on here, folks? Overnight, the House of Representatives passed another continuing resolution. If you've been with this channel since the last month or two, you know that there has been another CR. Why is another version? Nancy Pelosi keeps on passing different versions of the CR. So there is a CR that is already in the Senate. $1.5 trillion of discretionary spending, House and Senate, Republican, Democrat negotiated deal. But another version was passed overnight in the House. And there was also a stopgap that was passed so that they can work on this to at least Tuesday. This is potentially a major pivot. But let me tell you what was a surprise. The huge surprise is that while there's still the opportunity to put a $2,000 stimulus check in there with $1.5 trillion of discretionary spending, no one saw this coming. For the first time in 10 years, county stimulus got in there. Wow. Now, obviously, I can't tell you what happened in your respective county. But if you live in the state of Georgia, there's a lot of articles about your state tonight. Representative Buddy Carter got some is among the people that herald the provisions. It's a 2,741 page bill. And in there, for the first time in over a decade, it included multiple districts all across the country with local stimulus. Georgia's 6 Democrats in the House, 2 Democratic senators, and Republican Buddy Carter and others had requested funding for local jurisdictions. Anywhere from $5 million to, in some cases, $10 million for these items. Representative Carolyn Below and others, and Representative Lucy Macbeth were among those who got project after project funded for local stimulus in this CR. It's huge. So your county may have stimulus in the CR as of the House version. Of course, it's not a law yet. It's over to the Senate, and away we rock and roll. So it's important to advocate because remember, $1.5 trillion of discretionary funding has the ability to get a $2,000 stimulus check in there for you. But the great news tonight is that the House version already has in there some county stimulus for the first time in nearly a decade. Yeah. Last year we were talking about how people said you don't get a stimulus check in a CR, it's for federal funding. Well, for the first time in a decade, it's also now for county funding. Yeah, big surprises. And then you may be wondering what happened to that COVID relief. Did the president's ability to get COVID relief in there take the CR off the tracks? No. Nancy Pelosi last night said, I'm not putting in COVID because I know the Senate Republicans say no to it, and we will just go back to the drawing board. We'll waste our time. So Nancy Pelosi really going against the President of the United States, saying, I'm not putting COVID in there because it's a waste of time. The Republican senators will vote against it. So that is not happening. Out. Great news. This is on top of the Build Back Better Act, which the president in a new series of comments says must be passed. He says that if you want to reduce the burden on people who are struggling right now, you need to pass the Build Back Better Act, including, and it follows along the lines of the American Rescue Plan. He says that in new comments to Boston historian Heather Cox Richardson. That is the CR, that is the Build Back Better Act, and then that is also the SS 300. But the big exciting news is that there is one other stimulus package, another stimulus package, and a third stimulus package all happening at the same time. The first one is law, the second one is law, and the third one will become law. Now understand, if you've been with us, Sean, you understand for a while that often these stimulus packages overlap. We've often had stimulus packages paying out at the same time. In the second half of this video, I'm going to show you how 4 stimuluses, $80,000 of checks are paying right now. I'm going to show you how third stimuluses checks are still paying out now. This is not a stimulus check, but upwards of $45,000. And how viewers this week, because of this recording, have gotten $10,000 checks from third stimulus. You can also get those $80,000 checks from fourth stimulus coming up in the second half of this video. Then we'll be looking at the big exciting details of the sixth stimulus. This will start in the next few weeks and it would overlap with third and fourth at the same time. Yes, lots of money. Then we'll be looking back to what's happening overseas in the Kremlin and what's happening with Ukraine and why this is causing an economic meltdown across the board. There's a very fast-moving series of events and the White House is not pivoting quick enough. While the White House last week announced this, an incredible $80,000 program of stimulus for millions of Americans, what I'm calling a fourth stimulus add-on, there's a potential recession looming on the horizon. And that solution to avert that recession has not been done yet by the White House. What's at issue and why is this different than the issue of inflation? Meantime, what is going on with the alliances of the Western countries to get off of Russian oil? Are they moving too little or too late? Last night I told you about Jetgate. The vice president oversees to deal with Jetgate. No longer an issue because we're not delivering a jet. So, is the vice president pivoting and trying to get the allegiances of the countries lined up for economic showdown or not? I'll have all those details and more as we go into the second half. But first, here's a little bit about the community page. As America's #1 most watched show in prime time for financial news, Evenings LA continues. See you back in 60 seconds with the big checks of that $80,000 program.
If you want money right now, not 5 days from now, and not 5 weeks from now, then reach out to the community page. The volunteers can help you find that money for rent and utilities. That's at news.la.com/community. The community page features a series of volunteers who are viewers like you. They can help you find rent, utilities, SNAP, food benefits, mortgage assistance, and help you with eviction moratorium questions as well. Their Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram individuals reach out to them and indicate the city and state you're from, and they'll get back to you shortly. That's a community page. Volunteers working for you, viewers helping one another. Stay with LA for more. Join LALATE Daily for the excitement of the new LALATE live daily. The excitement starts on mornings LALATE at 9 a.m. Home LALATE returns at 11 a.m. daily. And then afternoons LALATE at 1 p.m. Join us daily as the excitement continues live from Santa Monica on LALATE.
And the excitement continues right now in the second half of Evenings LA. A big night across the board. I hope the weather is good where you are. We have a lot of exciting details, and we're going to go right into those incredible checks that millions of Americans need. It is the fourth stimulus add-on, and let's look at that exciting map starting right now. This map indicates where those $80,000 of checks have gone live, and I hope you got it as well. This is the homeowners grant, and I'm now referring to on Evenings LA as the fourth stimulus add-on or ancillary piece of legislation. It was announced by the White House last Friday, and it is live. It's paying out. It's not pie in the sky, and it's at the same time as fourth stimulus, so that's why I'm calling it fourth stimulus ancillary. What's at issue? You're looking at a map currently that delineates the program. What's the program? A homeowners grant. Announced by the White House last Friday, immediately delivered to the membership of this channel in their incredible newsletter last Friday. This is a program of free money, $15,000 to $80,000 of checks. And how do you get it? What are the details? What do you need to know? Let's go over the details right now. This is an incredible program of checks where you can get $15,000 to $80,000, number one. Number two, the eligibility is just like a third stimulus check, so you have to be within a certain income qualification. The eligibility, just like that third stimulus check. So, single individuals, $75,000 less, you get it. Married couple, $150,000 less, you qualify. What do you need to get this homeowners grant? You have to own a home. So if you own a home and you make that income level of a stimulus check, you qualify. SSI, SSDI, Social Security, railroad benefits, veterans benefits, you all can get this if you're within the income zone of a third stimulus check. It's incredible. And this is live. Now let's go back to that map right now. The map delineated right here shows a series of states. If your state is in the color of teal, like California, Texas, Florida, and yes, New York, the program is live. In the case of New York, it's going live in about a day or two. New York was originally not included in the list, but now it's going live. Now, if your state is not teal, doesn't mean it's not offered. It will be offered in every single state. It's just like the situation we had with unemployment assistance last year, where several states go live before other states. It's the computer rollout of their computer systems. So some states have their computer systems ready to rock and roll. Others take a few more days. So don't worry if your state is not teal. You're just not live today. And don't think that the money's going to round out in your state. It's allocated on a state-by-state basis. So it just means their computer systems need to get ramped up and ready to rock and roll. These sums of money are for programs that many viewers have asked for coverage for over a year and a half, never saw it, and now it's happening. Again, the payout $15,000 to $80,000 per household. Number two, the rollout will be done on a state-by-state basis. The expenses can cover mortgage payments, property taxes, homeowners insurance, association fees, utilities, and home repairs. Applications are done at a state-by-state basis, all online. And how do you get the details? You become a member. To become a member, go under this video or to the top of the video, click the member link, and you get that newsletter. Monday through Friday, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. It's sent out by the YouTube alert system at 7 o'clock Pacific Standard Time, which is 10 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. At the very beginning of the membership newsletter, it mentions the homeowner's grant, the money, the income qualifications, the payments, and a link right into the website that then routes you to your state-by-state websites. And of course, that map that shows you how to get the money. This is the homeowner's grant. Now, if you're a viewer and you say, but I'm a renter, I'm not a homeowner, don't worry, because I have money for you. It's called third stimulus. Let's compare third stimulus versus this homeowner's grant. Third stimulus and this homeowner's grant, which I'm calling fourth stimulus add-on, are happening at the same time. Yes, third and fourth can happen at the same time. I'll show you in a second. That six is going to happen at the same time as third and fourth. Third stimulus has money for renters and homeowners. This homeowner's grant has money for homeowners, obviously. So I got coverage for everyone on this channel, whether you're a renter or homeowner. And that's the great news across the board. The bigger news today, of course, is what's happening with this very, very fluid situation of what I'm now calling sixth stimulus. And I need to explain to you what first sixth stimulus is, and then explain to you what you need to look for and what's the breaking news across the board. Sixth stimulus was debuted on this channel 2 nights ago. On March 8th, 2022, I detailed to you that a sixth stimulus package will be happening because of an allegiance between the countries of France, Germany, and the United States. Hours after that broadcast aired during prime time on Evenings LA here, governors of states across the country, Republican and Democrat, said, we're doing our version of sixth stimulus locally. Why is this heating up so much? Let me go over what sixth stimulus is first, and then I'll go over where it's likely to twist, and of course, the dates at issue. Sixth stimulus you could think of in the most basic format as a stimulus package so that you could afford higher prices of gasoline. That is the sort of introductory, the sort of novice way to look at sixth stimulus. It's a package to deal with the price of gasoline. First stimulus was to deal with COVID. Second stimulus was to deal with COVID. Sixth stimulus is to deal with the situation of gasoline. Governors of California, governors of Republican states, all saying, we're going to do stuff locally to deal with the problem of gasoline. So it's all the same mindset. Let me tell you what's going on the bigger platform, which is the federal version of this, the US version of this, the Germany and the France version of this. But first, let me start with the date. The date that you really want to look for is April. Not so much because of something happening here in the United States, but something happening in France. In April, we will learn if President Macron, who is a Democrat, much like Joe Biden, is reelected for presidency again in the country of France. If that happens, then you have the trifecta lined up. What is the trifecta? The trifecta is the United States with a Democratic president, Germany already with a Democratic inclined president, and then France lined up with its Democratic president. Everything would be lined up, and that trifecta has already said that they are ready to do massive social spending on their citizens because of Vladimir Putin's acts of aggressions. stemming from Russia's invasion of Ukraine. What's at issue? Let's now go over the analysis. It may look like a package to deal with oil, but it's becoming a lot more bigger than that. And my prediction is that it's going to be done in a massive magnitude because the situation is not just a stimulus package to deal with oil. It's a stimulus package to deal with wheat, grain, commodities out of control, nickel, and for the first time on Evenings LA, you're going to hear me say a potential major downturn in the banking industry in the United States because of Vladimir Putin. Let me go over the situation basically, and then I'll go over the complex version of it. What you need to know is that these governments understand we cannot sustain the current economic levels and we cannot sustain the current numbers for gasoline or we go into recession. If you don't have that lined up, then guess what happens? We go into recession. And if you don't have it prepared, then we are in big trouble. What's at issue? Let me do the basics of the situation right now and then explain how this kicks in. Gasoline in the United States via AAA today, nationwide average $4.30 a gallon. Not a sustainable number. Not a sustainable number. That number cannot be the average in the United States through the month of May, which is less than 8 weeks away. If it is, analysts and myself believe we're going into recession in 2023 and we'll be there for 2 years. So that's a problem number one. The gasoline prices in the United States are not sustainable, and if we keep that level, we go into recession. The way we can keep the level and not go into recession is the government does a funding bill for the people. Let me give you another example. If gasoline prices remain high and you can't afford it, how do you afford it? They give you money. And who's talking about this? Germany, France, the United States. That is problem number one, gasoline. Problem number two, wheat and grain. You cannot afford more for the price of bread indefinitely. You can maybe do it for today or tomorrow, but you can't do it past May. Price of bread going up in the United States because of Vladimir Putin. I'll explain to you in a second why. You can't sustain a higher price of bread on a daily basis for more than 8 weeks. That's the economic situation. Unless the federal government gives you money to alleviate the situation. Number three, your banks that you do banking with cannot suffer a meltdown of corporate earnings for more than 1/4 of this year, or we go into a major recession. Banking downturns, yes, it's brand new tonight on Evenings LA. I'm going to go over it in just a second. But first, let me start with the gasoline situation and explain to you basically what this sixth stimulus looks like. The way this sixth stimulus looks like is the following, and let me tell you where it came from so you understand the background of it. It came from Germany, and it really was a reaction to Anthony Blinken. Anthony Blinken, who is your Secretary of State, met with Germany a week ago, saying the United States will be advocating to get off of Russian oil. We have to get off of Russian oil. And Germany said, no, we can't do that because we can't afford anything else. We don't have anything else lined up. That was what Germany initially said. Then Germany said, we changed our mind. You're right. We cannot morally buy Russian oil anymore. We will get off of Russian oil. The way we're going to get off of Russian oil is we are going to increase our debt spending in Germany and then give our citizens some money so they can afford more expensive oil. Here's the situation. Oil goes up the less oil that's available. So if you remove Russian oil, the price of gasoline goes up. Now, your citizens can't afford a more expensive gasoline indefinitely. So if your citizens can't afford more expensive gasoline, what do you do as a country? You give your citizens some money. And then to finance giving your citizens more money, you raise debt in the country. This is the plan of the United States, Germany, and France. Get off of Russian oil, but then also give money to citizens so that they can afford $5 a gallon and keep the respective country out of recession. And to do that, you debt spend. The governments spend debt. This is the way the governments do it on a national level. Now, later in this video, I'm going to explain to you what the states are going to do. The states have a different approach to the situation. That is situation number one, or commodity number one, oil. The first impact that Vladimir Putin has impacted across the board. This is why they are lining up six stimulus. Now, sixth stimulus is also needed for other reasons. And what is it? The other commodities, like wheat, grain, and soybeans, all surging out of control because of Vladimir Putin. You cannot afford more expensive bread. You cannot afford indefinitely more expensive corn. And if you see that as the current price point, then your country needs to do something. And what are they doing? Well, here's what's happening. The price of these commodities is going up because Vladimir Putin is circling the Black Sea and trying to take Odessa, the major port city that exports grain and wheat to neighboring countries. While we have our own wheat here, our wheat prices are going up because there's less wheat exporting from Ukraine. More about that in a second. And so that's the concept of sixth stimulus, is to basically provide that incredible relief to those citizens so that they can get off the dependency of Vladimir Putin. Now, let me tell you the situation tonight and why it's so fluid across the board. We're going to go over each of the situations one at a time, but first I want to start with something brand new tonight, and it is very, very scary. Economically, very scary. The situation is the banking industry. At the moment of this recording, Wall Street now admits that no one has assessed the risk of how deeply, badly hit the U.S. banking industry may be if a Russian default or a Russian junk bond status looms on the horizon. What's going on? U.S. banks have investments in Russian bonds and Russian stocks and also do businesses with Russian banks historically. Well, the impact on them financially is not known yet. They haven't told us the risk assessment. And they are set to announce potential major losses. You're going to hear in the next 2 or 3 days more banks saying, we're getting out. But we're getting out does not mean that they're not going to walk away with major losses. Let me tell you the situation tonight. Tonight, we have major banks across the globe and brokerage houses that said, we have now gotten out of Russian investments. But in getting out of Russian investments, it doesn't mean that they're not ready to take the loss. Let me give the situation right at hand. First up, Goldman Sachs said this week that it closes its doors in Russia. This morning, Deutsche Bank, the major German bank, said it's not practical for it to close its operations in Russia right yet because it has some clients. We're there to support our clients. And so for practical purposes, it's not an option for us. Let me tell you what is different here. Closing the door is one thing. Shutting down the operation or writing off the loss is wholly different. Every bank is going to get out of Russia. They're going to close the door. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about they're going to close out their investment in that Russian bond, that Russian stock, that Russian position that they have that's about to become devalued. I told you on day one of this Russian invasion of Ukraine that Russia was the number 10 largest economy in the globe. I told you it was going to fall to 15. I told you it was going to fall to junk bond status like a Cuba. Have no value. It's really right on the horizon. Within just a matter of a few days, the Russian valuations of its bonds and stocks are going to go from low credit rating to no credit value. Junk bond status. And we don't know, as U.S. viewers, we don't know, as consumers that go to our local bank, we don't know how large these positions are by U.S. banks in those Russian investments. In many cases, we're going to hear the first announcement of their exposure and their announced write-off of losses in those corporate earnings just a few weeks from now. This impacts you. I'll tell you how. You go to the local bank. You go to the local bank, and the local bank does business with a major U.S. bank. And that major U.S. bank has a position in a Russian stock bond that is slowly about to become valueless. They didn't buy it for free. They didn't buy it for zero. They bought it for a big chunk of change. And it's about to become zero. And they're about to write it off. Banks can't write off massive debts indefinitely. And what happens? It's very scary. We don't know how serious it could be. The last time we saw anything like this was right before Barack Obama came into office. The savings loans debacle. You woke up one morning in Los Angeles, suddenly Wachovia was gone. Banks were suddenly there one morning, and the next morning they're gone. This may be a major situation, and that's why sixth stimulus is part of this situation. These governments will not sit back whether it's France, Germany, the United States, and watch their banks go under. They're not going to watch their banks go under because their banks going under will make a run on money and will impact your money back at home. It's a very serious situation. And no one knows the risk. And if you don't know the risk, then you can't assess the risk. And if you can't assess the risk, you can go into a major recession in just a second. This is brand news tonight, and that is why analysts are very worried, because this is hinging on the future of the banking industry, that we don't know their exposure. And every bank could have very different exposure based upon what they did with Russia in the last few years. This is different than anything we've seen in this channel, and this would bring us into a major recession. That's why six stimulus is more than just gasoline's expensive. It's more than just wheat is expensive. It's how many industries are impacted by Vladimir Putin. In the last week, this channel has featured wheat, grain, soybean, corn, and also even nickel impacted in a way that inflation looks easy. Recession, very hard to predict, but certainly able to predict if it's an unsustainable economic event. And an unsustainable economic event is where things become too expensive. And the way you get them cheaper is you increase production. And with that, I want to go into the analysis of increasing production tonight and what happened since last night's broadcast. You know where I'm about to go. It's oil. Oil remains the major issue at hand, and that oil production has a lot of opportunities to be solved or at least alleviated, and the White House is not dealing with the situation. I'm going to give you the facts. I'm going to give you an analysis starting right now. This situation of oil is moving very fluidly, but it was certainly something that was seen back in October of last year. Let me tell you what was happening back in October last year. I was telling the viewership of this channel, there's 100,000 Russian troops at the Ukrainian border. They don't belong there. Biggest proliferation of Russian troops at another country's border since the Cold War. What's going on? I said, if Russia invades Ukraine, it's going to be the biggest economic event of 2022. I saw it, you saw it since Halloween of last year. Well, the White House saw it as well. The White House dispatched Treasury, Janet Yellen at the time, to analyze all the economic industries that would be impacted by this, and especially with oil. They reported back, and they understood that oil was going to be impacted by a potential invasion by Vladimir Putin in Ukraine. So what did the White House do? The White House had two things it should have done immediately in October. Immediately in October, it should have immediately reached out to West Texas oil producers and say, you know what, we see 100,000 Russian troops at the Ukrainian border. I don't know if they're invading Ukraine next year, but if they do, this could disrupt the oil industry. We may have to ban Russian oil. And if we ban Russian oil, we're going to need you to increase Russian oil. They didn't do that. They also should have reached out to their partner countries last year saying, you know what, something's going on with Russia. I don't know what they're going to do next year, but if they invade Ukraine, we have to be ready to get some oil from somewhere else. Venezuela, can you help us? United Arab Emirates, can you help us? How about OPEC plus countries? We don't know what's happening next year, but if it gets bad, can you be ready to help us? White House didn't do that. Now, here, let's give the White House a little bit of leeway. Let's say the White House didn't know it was going to be that bad. Okay, I've been covering this war since day one. Day one of this war, I said, ramp up production, West Texas. Ramp up production, West Texas. West Texas can ramp up production, and if West Texas ramps up production of gasoline in the United States, our price goes down. Why? Gasoline in the United States is not dependent upon Russia. Only 3% of gasoline consumed in the United States comes from Russia. And so if West Texas, which can produce more gasoline, increases production output, then the price of gasoline goes down in the United States. Pretty simple. It's very simple. So what happened over those last 10, 11 days of this war? Early on, the White House had its undersecretary to Treasury appear on broadcast meeting and was asked, have you reached out to West Texas? The answer was evasive. The takeaway from the interview was the White House has not. Why do we know that? Because West Texas went on the record saying the White House has not reached out to us to increase production. We're ready to produce more gasoline. Americans for Americans. Texans for Americans to increase gasoline, bring it down. And they said the White House hadn't reached out to us. What happened last night on E! News LA? Last night on E! News LA, I told you a major pivot from the White House. That major pivot came from the Energy Secretary, Jennifer Granholm, who I deeply adore. But what is she doing? She said in that comment last night that the White House will now consider ramping up production. Let's read the quote slowly together so we see the verb tense that Granholm says. We are on a war footing. We're in emergency, and we have to responsibly increase short-term supply. So the statement is very clear. We have to increase short-term supply where we can right now to stabilize and minimize harm to the American family. So the comment's very clear. We need to short-term increase supply, meaning West Texas needs to increase supply. Well, guess what? Broadcast media wasn't buying it. Nor was I buying it. Why? Because West Texas says this is sort of a dog and pony show. And guess what? After Granholm's comment, broadcast media reached out to Big Oil and Big Texas to see if Granholm's comments are just the dog in the window or whether it is really something with true substance. They say it was not with substance. They said the White House has not reached out to the ramp up of production and that there actually is no deal in place to ramp up production in West Texas. That West Texas is still waiting for the White House to reach out to them, and until they do, production's not ramped up. Troubling, very troubling. This is really a bad pivot for the White House. And guess what? I'm not alone in saying this. Broadcast media is running the same quote as well. The quote they're running is that the White House has had the opportunity to ramp up production, hasn't. That the White House has been asked to ramp up production, hasn't. That Granholm says now we need to ramp up production, and West Texas still has not heard from the White House. Here's the problem that I see more issue. It's not just West Texas. It's also the issue of the partner allies. Last night I told you on this channel that your vice president, here from California, was overseas to deal with Jetgate. Jetgate involved the delivery of jets from the United States to Poland and Poland to Ukraine. It became a hot potato for obvious reasons because whoever delivers the jet, many in the Defense Department thought would be the aggressor in Vladimir Putin's eye. Logically so. So she's overseas to deal with Jetgate, which is no longer an issue. Her itinerary is free now. Now that she's not dealing with Jetgate because no one's delivering jets, what should she be doing? She should be immediately meeting with our partner allied countries to get them to increase production of gasoline. Let's go over the details. When we talk about the threat of recession in the United States from unsustainable gas levels, two things need to be done. One, we need to increase production domestically. And number two, we need to get our partner countries' gasoline from somewhere else. Germany is among the countries now understanding that they will get gasoline from somewhere else because it's a moral issue, even though they're 40% dependent on Russia, but that somewhere else is not lined up. Why? Number one, Venezuela is the number one producer and exporter of gasoline. White House should have reached out to them back in October last year. 100,000 Russian troops at the Ukrainian border. We need gasoline. If Vladimir Putin invades Ukraine, we need some gasoline lined up. Do you have it for us? Get it ready. Hasn't happened then, hasn't happened now. OPEC Plus. OPEC Plus. White House should be immediately getting a deal with OPEC Plus to increase production. Hasn't done that either. And in fact, OPEC Plus says it won't increase production, at least at the moment. OPEC Plus has denounced Vladimir Putin's acts of aggression, but they're not increasing production. Early this week, there was a rumor that Iraq would increase it, but that was just a rumor. And it caused gas prices to drop dramatically. But again, it was only a rumor. No deal to increase production by OPEC Plus. Where's the gasoline going to come from? And there's another problem at hand. The other problem at hand is that Vladimir Putin may jump us all to the step. Vladimir Putin is vowing to end distribution of gasoline to Germany before they ban him. Meaning he's saying, you know what? You ain't going to ban me. I'm going to turn off the pipe. You're not going to get it from me. This could literally send everything to a tailspin. Imagine one morning your country wakes up and suddenly 40% of its gasoline supplier is gone. That's what Vladimir Putin is threatening. And that could send Germany into a tailspin. And if Germany goes into a tailspin, not just Germany goes into a tailspin, everyone that does business with Germany, like the United States, will go into a tailspin. This is why the White House should be working on this right now. The White House is good on economic alliances and was great on getting that debt ceiling limit raised with Janet Yellen and Joe Biden in 2021 for the American Rescue Plan. They did in 4 weeks. Why have they waited now since October and no deal to ramp up production with gasoline domestically? No deal to ramp up gasoline for our partner allies like Germany and France. No deal to get gasoline moved from OPECs to those countries, or no deal to get Venezuela to dedicate gasoline to our partner countries. Yes, I understand the White House is trying to broker a deal with Iran that would get a nuclear agreement, and if Iran's oil comes back in the pipeline, then we have millions of barrels. But let's be frank. When is that Iranian nuclear agreement going to happen? It's not going to happen tomorrow. We got 6 weeks to deal with, Joe. We got about now to May to get that gasoline price down. So number one, Joe, make the phone call. You not only need to make the phone call to raise cola, swap out cola for inflation, you need to make that phone call to increase oil production out of West Texas. After you pick up the phone and call the Social Security Administrator to swap out cola for inflation, also make that phone call to West Texas saying, hey, increase some oil production. That will alleviate our pressure at home to start. And then the Vice President, make the phone call to OPEC Plus. Make the phone call to Venezuela. Get that gasoline routed over so that the price drops. Don't do it. Guess what? May have $4 a gallon. We're going to recession 2023. Cannot wait around much longer. Meantime, the situation with grain and wheat more troubling, and the situation with the banking industry even more problematic. I'm deeply worried what's going to happen with corporate earnings in just a few weeks from now. I can't tell you how much the major U.S. banks have invested in Russia. They may have disclosed in their SEC reports in previous years, but no one's zooming through those reports, and no one knows how much of a loss it is because no one knows if they've increased their positions over the last 2 years or 3 years. And when they announce those losses on the corporate earnings, oh boy. And we thought that inflation was just one of the concerns that Jay Powell has to deal with. Then suddenly has to deal with all these equations. None of this is being prepared by the White House. Again, this is what sixth stimulus is. The good news tonight is that third stimulus is still paying out as well. And so if you are a renter, you can still get that third stimulus. Where you get it, you reach out to your city hall, your city house authority, your county hall, your county house authority. And that keywords you're going to say are rent assistance because of COVID, utility assistance because of COVID, and mortgage assistance because of COVID. Get that big money right now. Reach out to all 6 places, and then make sure you put multiple applications on file and do multiple rounds. Now, the viewership of the channel have done so well on this money in the last few days. The success stories continue to come on in. What are the success stories? Viewers who have watched Evenings LA, the show in prime time, have done really well. This week, Nellie Pin, by watching this channel, a member, has gotten $9,000 from rent from watching Evenings LA in prime time. She says, thank you, LA, for your expertise and sharing the knowledge from watching your show, Evenings LA. Listen to your advice. I was awarded a little over $9,000 for rental assistance. Great news. Carol Moore, member, 2 months. From watching Evenings LA, she says, I got $4,000 from city housing and $1,100 from electric for my son's group home. And David Allen, from watching Evenings LA, he says, I got $10,000 in rental assistance. Yahoo, he says. It's a regular occurrence. These are members who get that incredible membership newsletter Monday through Friday, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Remember, third stimulus still paying out rent and homeowners assistance. So rent and homeowners assistance. Now that fourth stimulus add-on, those $80,000 checks for homeowners. Sixth stimulus likely to happen at the same time. This CR with this local money, really fascinating. And that SS300, all likely to happen at the same time. Big overlap, lots of money. And the details are very fluid, but here we go into what's happening across the board. Finally, one big word I want to go over with you. It's very important to hear this word because it's causing a lot of confusion. The word is ceasefire. If you hear the word ceasefire and you're trying to assess your financial position, understand that word does not necessarily refer to the end of Vladimir Putin's acts of aggression against Ukraine. The word ceasefire in many of the news circles right now is being used to describe opening humanitarian corridors for evacuees. So if you hear the word ceasefire, do not think it is time to go buy your stocks, bonds, and crypto because Vladimir Putin has pulled out of Ukraine. Ceasefire is being used by broadcast media to refer to when evacuation zones are in place. Meantime, the humanitarian situation growing by the hour. The number of refugees is already at 2 million. It's growing up 500,000 a day on this channel, and it's likely to grow to nearly 10 million in just a few days. The largest movement since World War II, says the UN. The good news is that some countries in Romania, like Romania, have really found the opportunity to streamline the evacuation situation. So we're hearing great news that these countries have gotten together really well to figure out how to help those people in need. Tonight, as I featured on Evenings LA, I send my prayers and wishes to that wonderful family that was absolutely gunned down in the streets of Ukraine. It was a beautiful, wonderful woman here from California, a tech executive who is living in Ukraine and was there taking care of her mother. I do not know the status of her mother, but she was trying to leave the town in Ukraine with her son and her daughter. They were gunned down on the street trying to evacuate. She survived by her husband and her father. So my deepest thoughts and prayers as one of the many human casualty stories by the minute, by the hour. I'm deeply worried tonight about another subject, which is, of course, the inability to get medical supplies into some of these towns. A lot of the agencies are now reporting they're having problems getting those medical supplies into these towns. These towns have been without power, without water and utilities for several days. So the situation is very fluid across the board. I'll feature it more tonight in that brand new evening's broadcast of Street and Stimulus. But from the shores of Santa Monica, California, to the shores of the Black Sea, our thoughts and prayers are with everyone. Join me nightly as Evenings LA goes over the latest details you need to know in prime time, as tomorrow night we return at 5 o'clock Pacific Standard Time, 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time with another broadcast. It's Evenings LA every night at 5 o'clock, and I'll see you tomorrow night. Our prayers and wishes are with the people of Ukraine.